Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Skep Live Online, a production of University of Hawaii Presents, based at the University of Hawaii at Manoa Outreach College. I'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsors, the Hawaii State Foundation on Culture and the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, the University of Hawaii, and Kaanoa Senior Services. We're excited to have you join us this week, and we love to stay in touch. So give us your comments and questions through today's chat window and let us know what you're thinking. Also, if you send your email to csinfo, that's CSINFO at hawaii.edu, you'll get notices about upcoming programs. Well, we're excited to enter day 2 with that fabulous storyteller, Kathy Collins. Since the age of 13, Maui girl Collins has performed as a storyteller, stage and film actress, radio and television personality, stand-up comic, emcee, and dancer. She's also a newspaper columnist for the Maui News and freelance writer. With her pidgin-speaking alter ego, Tita, she has talked story across the state and the mainland, from the Hawaii Book and Music Festival to the Lincoln Center Out of Doors Festival. So without further ado, let's welcome back Kathy Collins.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's a joy to be back here today. Very excited, and I do want to again thank my good friends at Kaanoa Senior Services and my new friends at Skep for making all of this possible and for allowing me to participate. Skep program has presented some amazing performances, which I've gotten to enjoy, and I'm privileged and honored to be part of it. So yesterday we did pidgin lessons and a couple of Pele stories. Today I'm excited to share tales and truths from around the world because, you know, the more stories I read and hear and tell, the clearer it becomes to me that we have so much more in common than not, wherever you come from, whatever your culture, your heritage. And so I've picked a few of my favorite stories and tales from various parts of the globe, starting off in Europe. After my husband passed away suddenly, well, today's April 7th. Exactly 14 years ago today, I was a month away from doing a one-woman comedy show at the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. So that, of course, got postponed. And in the months following, I decided to change it up completely. And I did a one-woman show called Kathy Collins' Death Comedy Jam. At the time, Russell Simmons' Deaf Comedy Jam was really big. So I just, I love puns. And so some months after he passed, I wrote, produced, and performed this show all about facing death and widowhood with humor. And so in my research, I read a lot of self-help books and psychological studies and so forth, and folk tales, because there's so much wisdom to be gained from folk tales. And I found this delightful story from Hungary called Death and the Old Woman. A long, long time ago, there lived a very old woman in a tiny little house on the outskirts of a tiny little village. She was so old, no one in the village could remember when she wasn't old. It seems death had forgotten about her. She had outlived everyone in her family, and so she lived alone, but that didn't bother her. She was quite content. She passed each day collecting things to look at, things to play with, things to count. Her tiny little house was full of boxes and barrels of things. Well, one morning, Death had finished a visit to one unfortunate family in the village, as he did every so often, and he decided to take a stroll. And as he was walking down the road leading out of the village, he saw a little path that he hadn't noticed before. So he followed the path, and it led right up to the old woman's house. Death knocked on the door. Now, this startled the old woman because nobody ever came to visit her. "Who's there?" "It is I, Death." "Death? Well, go away. I don't want any." "No, old woman. I can tell by your voice that I have let you go for far too long. No one cheats death. It is time for you to come with me now." "Oh, no, no. I'm not ready to go. If you think you've let me go for too long, well, what's another year or two? Come back later. I have things to collect." "No, old woman. You come with me now." "Oh, please, Mr. Death. How about just one more year?" "No, now." How about another month? Just 1 month?" "No." "Oh, one week?" "All right. I'll give you one more day." "Oh, thank you, Mr. Death. Oh, thank you so much. Now, one full day, right? You won't be coming back tonight. You promise?" "I promise. I'll be back for you in the morning." "Oh, thank you, Mr. Death. But would you mind putting that in writing?" "What?" "Well, I'd like to rest easy on my last day. Please, I'd like you to write it down so I know you won't forget our deal." Death took a piece of charcoal out of his pocket and he wrote on the woman's front door, "Tomorrow." "All right. Happy now? I'll be back in the morning." Death stormed down the path, and as soon as he had left, the woman went back to doing what she had always done, playing with her things and looking at her things and counting her things. She went to bed at the usual time. And the next morning, as the first rooster was crowing, she slowly woke up, still in bed. Then she heard a knock on the door. "Who's there?" "It is I, Death. Time for you to come with me, old woman." "Well, Mr. Death, I think you may have made a mistake. Look at what you've written on my door." Death read, "Tomorrow." "That is my writing." "All right, old woman. I'll be back tomorrow." And off he went. And the old woman spent the day as she always had, looking at her things, playing with her things, counting her things. The next morning, Death returned and once again read, "Tomorrow." I should get a calendar. How am I getting all mixed up here? The next day and the next day after that, same thing. It took Death a full week to figure it out. But when he did, he was furious. "All right, old woman, tomorrow is your last tomorrow." And he wiped off the words with his sleeve and stormed down the path. Well, now the old woman was scared. All day, all night, she tried to think of some way to get out of her predicament, but she could come up with nothing. And the next morning, when the first rooster crowed, she panicked and she climbed into a barrel to hide. The barrel was full of honey. She sank down beneath the surface, but she could only hold her breath for a minute. And as she popped up, gasping for air, the top of her head was visible from the barrel. She had to find a better place to hide. So she climbed out of the barrel, dripping with honey, and she could hear Death's footsteps coming up the path. She jumped into the nearest box, which was full of goose feathers. She burrowed down to the bottom under the feathers. And just in time, because today Death didn't bother to knock. He kicked down the door. "All right, old woman, your time is now. Where are you?" The old woman was huddled deep in the box of feathers, trying to keep as still and as quiet as she could. But oh, there were feathers tickling her feet. There were feathers in her ears. There were feathers up her nose. And try as she might, she just couldn't hold back. The box burst open in an explosion of feathers. Still reeling from that giant sneeze, the old woman stood up, and she was covered in feathers, stuck to every inch of her honey-covered body. Well, Death had never seen such a creature before in his life. It was this giant bird, a faceless, bellowing bird. Death thought, "Oh, this must be some sort of monster. Probably devoured the old woman before he could get there." Terrified, Death ran as fast as he could out of the cottage, down the path, and far, far away. And as far as I know, he never did come back for the old woman. So I guess maybe you can cheat Death, or at least fool him for a bit. One of the wonderful perks of being a storyteller is you get to travel around and you get to hear other storytellers tell tales. And a few years back, I had the great privilege and pleasure. And Jeff Gear, who I think is watching today, Jeff Gear and I traveled from Hawaii to Yellowknife, Canada, way up in the Northwest Territories, and participated in a storytelling festival which brought together tellers from Hawaii and from Canada, including a couple of mountain men and First Nation tellers. Sharon Shorty is from the Tlingit tribe, and she, much like Tita and me, she has an alter ego, Grandma Susie, who loves to tell tales, tribal tales of her tradition. She told a number of great stories at that festival, but my favorite is the one that I'm going to share with you now about the giant basket woman. The giant basket woman can be found in a number of First Nation folklore under different names, but the story I'm going to share with you is apparently have been passed down for many generations. And as I said, it was my favorite of all of Sharon Shorty's tells. Many, many generations ago, up in the rugged mountains of the Yukon, there lived a terrible giant woman. She was a cannibal, and her favorite meal was children. Whenever she would leave her cave and go hunting for her prey, she carried on her back a huge basket with which to hold her little children. It was for this reason that the children of the villages were forbidden to wander away without adults to protect them. Well, on one particularly hot day, the children of a certain village begged the adults to accompany them down to the river so they could go for a swim. But all of the adults were busy doing their chores, and so the children were told to wait, maybe later, maybe tomorrow. Well, the children grew impatient, as children often do, and a dozen of them, the boldest, most high-spirited ones, decided they would defy their parents, and they snuck down to the river on their own. They waded in the cool, clear water, and oh, the water felt so refreshing. They tried to keep quiet, but they couldn't help giggling and then laughing and then splashing each other. And pretty soon they were hooting and hollering and yelling so loudly that the giant basket woman awoke from her afternoon nap high up in the mountains. I hear children, lots of children, fat, juicy children. Ha ha! I shall eat well today. She strapped her basket onto her back and followed her nose down to the river. One by one, she scooped up the screaming children, tossed them into the basket on her back, and in a few giant steps, she was back in her mountain cave. The giant basket woman built a big fire, and in the fire, she laid 12 large, flat rocks on which to roast the children. Then she took off her basket, turned it upside down, and shook all the children out onto the ground. Oh, the little ones huddled up together in a corner of the cave while the giant basket woman stoked the fire and sang a most terrible song. Rocks in the fire, soon I'll eat. Roasted children, such a treat. Well, the children began to whimper and weep. And the giant basket woman said, Quiet! Children should be eaten, not heard. Stop your whining. Well, the oldest child, who was also the cleverest, spoke up. Oh, we were just admiring your lovely voice and such an amusing song. Please, won't you sing it again and louder so that we may enjoy our last minutes of life? Well, the giant basket woman had never been called beautiful, so she sang louder. Roasted children, such a treat. Oh, the boy spoke up in awe and wonder. Oh, so beautiful. Anyone who can sing so beautifully must surely be a talented dancer. Oh. The giant basket woman began to dance, if you could call it that. Rocks in the fire, soon I'll eat. Oh, so graceful, like an antelope. Ha! The giant basket woman, fueled by the praise, just danced harder and louder. She sang and she hopped and twirled and hopped and closer to the fire. And then the oldest boy shouted, Now! And the children leapt as one onto the giant basket woman and shoved her into the fire. She fell onto the red-hot rocks and was consumed in flames. The children watched in awe as the giant basket woman was reduced to a pile of ashes. And then the fire went out just as quickly as it had gone. And the silence in the cave was suddenly broken. You foolish children. You think you've gotten the better of me? Never. I shall be eating your flesh and drinking your blood and the blood of your children and your children's children and their children until the end of time. And as the horrible voice faded away, A sudden gust of wind swooshed through the dark, cold cave, whirling the ashes up into a whirlwind. And as the children watched right before their eyes, every speck of ash sprouted wings and became a mosquito. Now you know where mosquitoes come from and why children should always obey their parents. I just love that story. I hate mosquitoes, but I love that story. Some stories, like some classic tales, like the English story of Jack, can be found all over the world in many different cultures by many different names. There's the Germans have Prudent Hans, and the Japanese have Silly Saburo. Well, I couldn't find any Hawaiian equivalent of the Jack story, so my best friend Tita made one up. She adapted Jack and Hans and Saburo for a local audience, and I'm going to let Tita tell you the tale of Lolohi. Eh, how's it? Oh, I get one good story for you guys about this small kid, yeah. His name was Lolohi. Now, in Hawaiian, Lolohi means slowpoke. That no was his real name, but that's what everybody called him because the bugger was so slow. Not that he was dumb, or lazy. This was one good boy. Always listened to his parents. In fact, maybe he listened and tried too hard. He always do only one thing at a time, exactly how he was told for do. That's why it take him so long for do anything, yeah? So one day, Lolo, his father, tell him, "Oh, Lolo, he is so hungry. Why not go down Tutu's house, go your grandma's house and go get me some sweet potatoes, yeah, for lunch. What you gotta do is now, listen careful. You go down the sweet potato patch. You get one stick and you dig in the ground, yeah? And each time you find one potato, you put them up, lay them down on the ground in the sun for the thing dry, okay? You got that?" Lolo, he says. "No worries, Dad, I get 'em." And off went Lolo, he down to Tutu's house, all happy and excited. Go get sweet potatoes for his father. When he reached the potato patch, get one stick, just like his father told him, he start digging. His stick hit something hard, way more hard than one sweet potato. Tink, tink, tink. He keep digging and he pull them up. Oh, was one bag full with gold coins. Wow! Lolo, he think to himself, "Oh, okay. Daddy said after I dig up my stuffs, I gotta spread them out on the ground so can dry in the sun." So that's what Lolo he went do. One by one, he take the coins from the bag. He lay them out on the ground. Oh, had so much coins, took up the whole potato patch. Leave them in the sun for dry. Had so much coins, took him long time. By the time he was putting the last coin on the ground, was past lunchtime already, and Lulu, he was hungry. So he went home. When he reached the house, his father tell, "So, we must sweet potatoes." Lolo, he said, "Oh, I never have time because all the money I went pick up." "What?" Lolo, he told his father about the big bag gold coins and how he went do just like his father said, lay them all out on the ground so can dry in the sun. Lolo, his father, take off running back down to Tutu's house, but by the time he reached, too late. Somebody went come along and pick up all the gold. Lolohi's father go back to the house and he tell Lolohi, "Lolohi, Next time you find something special like that, yeah? What you gotta do is wrap them up. Don't let nobody else see and bring them straight home. You got that? Lolo he tell. Don't worry, Dad. I get them. Next morning, Lolo he start out going down Tutu's house, gonna get those sweet potatoes. Almost he reach when he spot one dead cat on the side of the road. Okay, Daddy said when I find something special, I gotta wrap him up and no let nobody see and bring him right home. So he hem his shirt, take off his shirt, wrap up the dead, stinky cat in his shirt. No let nobody see him. And he take him home, put him on the kitchen table. He go get one spam musubi for himself. When Lolo, his mother, come inside the kitchen, she seen the bando on top the table. As she opened up, Lolo, what you and do? Lolo, he told, oh, I just did what Daddy said. He said, when I find something special, I gotta wrap them up, no let nobody else see and bring them right home. Lolo, no. When you find something like this on the side of the road, what you gotta do is dig one hole and bury them. You got that? Yeah, Ma, no worry. I get them. Next morning, Lolo, he going back down Tutu's house, gonna get his sweet potatoes. Almost he reached when he stumbled over this big tree branch and fall off from the kiawe tree. Okay. Ma said when I find something on the side of the road, I gotta dig one hole and bury him. Well, the dead branch was so big, took him kind of long, but at least the ground was all soft and wet because had rained at the night before. And he only had his hands for work, but he dig because he gotta do what his parents say. He finally get the whole branch buried in the mud when his father come looking for him. Lolo, why you been gone so long? Where are my sweet potatoes? Oh, Daddy, I was on my way, but then I find this kiawe branch, and Ma said when I find something, I gotta bury him in the ground. And Lolo, his father was, man! He dig, but he pull up the kiawe branch all soggy, all gonna be rotten pretty soon, yeah, from the mud. Lolo, his father tell him, Lolo, we could have used this for make pulehu meat, yeah. When you find something like this, yeah, you gotta bust them up in pieces, yeah, and carry them home, bundle them up, bring them home, so we could use them for a fire. Oh, we could have made some good barbecue. You got that? Lolo, he tell, no worries, Dad, I get them. Next day, back down Tutu's house, gonna get the sweet potatoes. Almost he reached when he spot something bright and shiny on the ground. He pick 'em up. Oh, was one brand new shiny pocket watch. Oh, probably went fall out of his father's pocket when they was digging up the branch. But Lolo, he never know that, eh? He just remember what his father said. Okay, so Daddy said, when I find something like this, I gotta bust them up in small pieces and bring them home. So, found a rock, put it, watch on the rock, grabbed another stone, and bang, 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 bang. He bust up the watch into 100 million pieces. And he pick up every single piece, put them in his pocket, and he go back home all proud. Eh? When he reach home, he empty out his pocket on the kitchen table, and his mother go, Lohi, that kind of look like the pocket watch I will give your father for his birthday. Oh man, why you did that? And Lolohi's father said, you know what? I go and get the sweet potatoes myself. He stormed out of the house. Lolohi's mother sitting at the kitchen table, all depressed. And he go to the counter, he grab one spam musubi, go in at the living room, sit down on the couch, start eating his spam musubi. I don't know why everybody gets so upset with me. I just do exactly what they tell me for do. And that was the story of Lolohi. Checking my time, it's exactly 10:30. Okay, we have time for one more story, and excuse me, this story is actually a poem. Beautiful poem that I fell in love with the first time I heard it. Written by Curtis Lamkin, who is an American poet, a griot actually. He often performs with the kora, which is a stringed instrument from West Africa, which is Mr. Lamkin's heritage. And this beautiful poem, which I am reciting with his permission, is called The Quelea Birds. Zoyano kabariya yana. Quelea birds fly in flocks of millions. During mating season, each pair has its own song. The male cries, Zoyano kabariya yana. The female replies, The male flies off, gathering twigs and grass and bits of feather to weave together a new nest for the season. Half finished, he summons his mate. Zoyano, come into my nest. She lands, gently padding around, checking the twists and turns. Half satisfied with his half-finished nest, she says, The male returns, fully inspired. Oh, it's more than a job, more than a challenge. It's the architecture of amour. He wants this side sun-dappled, that side swathed in shade, and in the middle, where they make life and love, let the sun descend warm and lush. Finished, he summons his mate back. Come on, baby, come over here right now. I got something real good for you. You want a house? Well, maybe you got a home. You want a home? Well, maybe, baby, you got a great big hug to wrap around you and keep you warm forever and ever. Come on, baby, come over here right now. She slams into the nest, scratching and scraping and beating at walls with her wings, pulling on it with her beak. She has the dream of love, too. She also has the dream of the snake winding up the tree trunk, dream of the stork coming out of the sky to take her babies. Hurricane dream, horizontal, blade-like, slicing up everything in its path. So she goes crazy in the nest, ripping it, ripping it, ripping it, ripping it, ripping it, ripping it. She exhausts herself. The nest remains. She cries, Zoyano, come into my nest. Zoyano, yeti, come into my heart, honey pudding pie. And the male, totally distraught by destruction wrought upon his work, floats inside, saying, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I guess some universal truths extend beyond the human race.
Thank you, Kathy. What a beautiful, beautiful poem. And thank you
Isn't it
for a
though? I love
wonderful,
it. Thank you.
it is, it is. Thank you for a wonderful morning.
Oh,
Of
thank you. I've had a great time.
Well, our audiences absolutely loved it from the comments. Couple of questions for you.
Sure.
What do you look for when you choose your stories to tell?
Um, I look for story. Normally, I very rarely sit down to tell my stories. I'm usually all over the stage. So I look for stories that I know I can employ my body and my face as well as my voice to tell. And basically, I look for stories that I enjoy, and it's always good to have a nice punchline.
Of course.
A message, but yeah, I like, yeah.
Well, this telling through this virtual medium must be very constraining to you, given your
Uh,
normal, very physical style.
it's taken some getting used to. I deeply miss not just the freedom to move around, but the interaction, the direct interaction with the
Hmm.
audience and seeing faces and being able to respond to that. But I'm having a great time, and it's yeah, I'm getting adjusted to the new
Yeah.
normal. Yeah.
Well, we do what we can do, right?
Yeah. The nice thing is that we get to I get to have a record of it, and
That's
I don't
true.
like watching myself, to tell you the truth, but I will get to see comments and then maybe reach out and talk to people
Yeah,
on a one-to-one basis to follow up. Yeah.
certainly. Given that you are able to juggle so many different hats, can you tell us a little more about your experience in comedy, storytelling, acting, radio? How are they different? What do you enjoy the most?
It was at one of those, in fact, it was at that Yellowknife Storytelling Festival when I happened to mention that I'm a stand-up comedian, and this was still, and Jeff Gear, I know, is laughing his butt off right now. I was still convinced that I was an imposter. I'm not a storyteller. I'm an actress portraying a storyteller. I'm a stand-up comedian. And one of my fellow tellers pointed out, well, stand-up comics are storytellers. Not every storyteller is a comedian,
This is true.
but every comedian, jokes are stories, right? Just little abbreviated ones. Um, I do enjoy stand-up comedy, but it's a bit more nerve-wracking. I've gotten to open for Rita Rudner and Howie Mandel a couple of
Mm.
years ago at the Mac. That was a thrill. Um, but I think I'm most comfortable when I'm hiding behind Tita.
Okay. We all like characters to hide
I
behind.
started to Yes, we do. And I got the grease paint in my blood back in high school,
Ah,
and found that I just loved playing different characters. And that's why I got into radio. I graduated from high school at 16, and I wanted nothing more than to become a performer and actress. But at that time, not that long ago, uh, you didn't see 5 foot tall Asian American women on screen or stage,
right.
big or small. And so I chose radio because on the radio,
Mm.
I could be anything. I could be male, female, old, young, tall, of any ethnicity. And radio is the theater of the mind, right? So
This
I
is true.
started my radio career at 17, and have stayed in radio ever since. There have been spells when I've been off the air, but I do love doing radio.
But it's nice to see that it is changing in the other mediums as well, and there are more shows and more movies, television, whatever, that are not only about the Asian American experience, or in the case of Kim's Convenience Center, the Asian Canadian
Oh,
experience. Brilliant show.
I
Um,
love that show. It is brilliant. I ordered online. I should have worn it. I got a shirt that says "Sneak Attack." But yeah, yeah. A few years ago, I realized, wow, now it's cool to be Asian American. I mean, as you know, a decade or so ago, when Lucy Liu was on what was that? Ally McBeal, and then you saw
mm,
more and more, and then with the Crazy Rich Asians and all of that just
right.
taking off, and now you got Young Rock on weekly television. So the Asian and Pacific Islanders, I think right now we're kind of riding the crest of this wave. Moana, I think, really helped to
Certainly.
open up the general public's interest in Polynesian stories and Pacific Islander stories. So, how lucky for us, yeah.
Yes, it is just sad to hear of the pushback by some, I don't know, very sad
Some
individuals who
unenlightened.
take out their frustrations on people who are different from them. Um,
It is indeed, and of course, it's not unique to Asian
no,
Americans
certainly
or
not.
African Americans or even ethnicity.
Yeah,
All of the hatred we see directed at folks of in gender issues. It's just
right,
it's baffling, especially when like the theme of today's show. We're so much alike.
right.
Why can't we all just get along, right? It's,
To quote Rodney
well, we got
King,
our
right?
work cut out for us.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you're doing a wonderful part of making us all come together and sharing the stories and showing the strength and that you bring to our audiences. And with that, I want to thank you once again,
Thank
and
you.
I'd like to thank our sponsors again
Thank you,
also.
Tim.
You're welcome. The National Endowment for the Arts, the Hawaii State Foundation on Culture and the Arts, the University of Hawaii, Kainoa Senior Services, and your audiences make this possible. And we love to have you come back, and please come back tomorrow morning, as Kathy will be here one more time this week, Thursday, 10 a.m., same place, same channel. So we look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, everyone stay safe and aloha.